The snow was falling quietly. A woman walked through the frozen forest, holding something small and warm in her arms. Her name was Sarah. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She looked behind her again and again. She was afraid. In her arms, a baby cried softly. It was her daughter Ira. The child was weak. She had not eaten in 2 days. Sarah kissed her forehead and whispered, "Just a little more. We're almost safe." But Sarah knew it was a lie. The world was no longer safe. Her village had burned. 3 nights ago. Giant machines, cold, heartless, inhuman, had come from the sky. They had no eyes, no voices, only metal arms, fire, and death. The people called them the harvesters. They took everyone, men, women, children. And those who fought were killed. Sarah had run. She ran through the woods, through ice and snow, with Ira in her arms. Her husband died buying them time. She never looked back. She couldn't, not with Ira still breathing. Now she was alone. No food, no fire, only the snow. And silence. But silence was dangerous, because silence meant they were near. She reached a small clearing. There, under a tree, she sat down. Her legs could not walk anymore. Her fingers were numb. Ira was not crying now. She was just breathing soft and slow. Too slow. Sarah looked up at the sky. It was white, empty, no sun, no hope. She sang. Her voice was quiet and broken. But she sang the lullaby of her people, a song mothers had sung for generations. Sleep, little one, don't fear the night. The stars will guard you, shining bright. Snow may fall and winds may cry, but in my arms you will not die. Her tears froze on her cheeks. Her body was giving up, but her arms held her baby tight. This was her final gift. A last lullaby before the snow claimed them both. But then, footsteps, crunch, crunch, crunched out. They were heavy, slow, human. Sarah stopped singing. Her heart jumped in fear. Were the harvesters here? Had they found her? She looked around, but saw no machines, only snow, only trees. Then a voice called out, "Is someone there?" A man's voice. Sarah gasped. She hadn't heard a human voice in days, maybe weeks. It was deep, tired, but kind. She didn't answer. The man spoke again, closer now. "I'm not with them. I swear, I'm human." He stepped into the clearing. He was tall, wore a heavy coat, boots covered in snow, a rifle slung across his back. His face had a short beard. His eyes were tired, but gentle. He looked at Sarah and saw the baby. "Oh God," he whispered. He dropped to his knees. "You're freezing. Here, take this." He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around Sarah and Ira. Sarah didn't speak. She was too weak. He looked into her eyes. "Can you walk?" She shook her head. He checked the baby. "She's still alive," he said, "but barely." Then he lifted them both into his arms. "I'm taking you somewhere safe," he said. "Why?" Sarah whispered. The man paused. "Because no one should die like this." And just like that, Sarah passed out in his arms. The wind howled across the white hills as the man carried Sarah and her child through the snow. His arms were strong, but the cold bit deep. Every step felt heavier than the last, but he did not stop. He couldn't. The baby in his arms was barely breathing, and the mother had already gone still. Not dead, but close. He looked down at her face. She was young. Too young to have seen the horrors she must have seen. Ash still clung to her hair. Blood stained her torn sleeves. The baby, wrapped in his coat, made a soft sound, barely more than a sigh. The man picked up his pace. His name was Mason. Once he had been a soldier, then a builder, then a survivor. Now he was just a man running from the same machines that had ruined her world. He walked another mile through the forest, his boots sinking into deep snow. Trees rose like black skeletons around him. Then, finally, the entrance appeared hidden. Behind a broken rock wall, covered with vines and branches. A steel door stood at an angle, rusted but strong. Mason kicked it twice, hard. A hiss of air escaped, and the door creaked open. Warmth hit his face. He stepped inside, quickly pulling the door shut behind him. The lights inside flickered to life. It was a small shelter built years ago for war that never came. The walls were made of thick metal, the floor of cold stone, but it was safe. It had food, water. Heat. He laid the woman gently on a bed and checked her pulse. Still alive. The baby stirred. Mason reached for a small container and poured warm milk from a ration pack. The baby's lips moved slowly. She drank. That was a good sign. He watched them for a while in silence. So many people had died. And now, somehow this woman and her child were alive. Maybe that meant something. He didn't believe in fate, but this felt like something different. Hours passed. Sarah woke with a scream. Mason jumped. Hey, it's all right, he said, holding up his hands. You're safe now. She backed into the wall, her eyes wide. Where is she? She cried. Mason pointed. Your daughter's okay. Sleeping. I fed her. Sarah's breath slowed. Her hands trembled as she crawled toward the small bundle wrapped in his coat. She touched the baby's cheek, warm, breathing. Tears fell from her eyes. But this time, they were not from pain. She turned to the man. You saved us. Mason shrugged. Maybe, for now. She looked around the metal room. Where are we? Old military shelter, he said. They forgot about it. I didn't. She studied him. Why did you help me? He looked away. Because I had a family too. There was silence. Deep. Heavy silence. Then Sarah whispered. They took everything from me. Mason nodded. They take everything from everyone. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside, for the first time in weeks, there was warmth, and the sound of two people breathing, not in fear, but in survival. And then, the power flickered. A red light blinked on the wall. A beep echoed. Mason's face changed. He stood up fast. What is it? Sarah asked. He grabbed his rifle. Motion sensors. Something's out there. Sarah stood too, her legs weak but steady. Harvesters? Mason didn't answer. He stepped to the door and placed his ear against the metal. Crunch, crunch, footsteps. Again, but not one pair, not human, not. This time, he looked back at Sarah. Hide, take the baby. Do not make a sound. She obeyed without question. Mason turned off the lights. The shelter went dark. The only sound now was the baby's soft breathing. And the approach of something terrible in the snow. And this time, it wasn't alone. Darkness pressed against the steel walls like a second skin. Sarah held Era close, rocking her gently without a sound. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, louder than ever before. The baby didn't cry. Somehow the child seemed to. Understand silence meant survival. Mason stood near the door, rifle tight in his grip. He didn't move, didn't breathe too loud. He counted the footsteps outside 3, maybe 4 sets. Too heavy, too steady. Not wild animals. Not people. Machines. The harvesters. A soft scratching sound came next, like metal fingers brushing. Across the outer wall, Mason closed his eyes. They were scanning, searching. He mouthed a single word to Sarah. Don't speak, don't move. Don't hope. The red light on the control panel blinked faster. Motion confirmed. Mason had one chance. If they didn't find the heat signature, they'd move on. But if even a flicker of warmth escaped through the walls, a loud bang shook the door. Sarah gasped, but bit down on her lip before sound escaped. Another bang. Then silence. The red light turned off. Mason didn't relax. He waited, still frozen, for a full minute. Then slowly he exhaled. There. Gone, he whispered. Sarah's shoulders slumped. She kissed Ara's forehead, her lips trembling. "Thank you," she mouthed, though no words left her throat. But Mason didn't sit down. He paced, thinking. "They're getting smarter," he said quietly. "They never used to knock. They're adapting." Sarah stared at him. "You've seen them before?" "I've fought them," he said, "years ago when they first arrived. We didn't know what they were. Some thought they were just drones. Others said they were scouts for something worse. But then the sky opened, and the harvest began." She listened, clutching her child as if the story might pull her into that nightmare again. "No mercy," he continued. "They don't talk. They don't explain. They just take. They drain the land, the people. They don't stop." Sarah looked at her daughter. "Why us? What do they want?" Mason didn't answer. Instead, he walked to a hidden panel in the wall and opened it. Inside were old maps, broken equipment, and a data core glowing faintly blue. "They took everything from me too," he said. "But I have something they don't know I still have." Sarah leaned closer. "What is that?" "Information," Mason said. "A signal. A voice recorded years ago, not human, something else. Something giving orders." He placed the core on the table. "And if we can trace the signal, we might find where they come from." Sarah frowned. "You want to go after them?" "I want to end this," Mason said, "and I can't do it alone." She looked down at her baby. Ara's tiny fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. "You helped me when I had nothing left," she said. "I'll help you now." Mason nodded once. There was no time for long speeches. No room for doubt. He powered up the core. The light brightened. A low hum filled the room. Then a voice played broken, distorted, and wrong. Unit -9. Directive recover. Subject echo priority high. Sarah stared at the machine. "Echo?" Mason's eyes went wide. He looked at the child, and suddenly, everything made a terrible kind of sense. "They're not hunting us," he said. "They're hunting her." Sarah clutched Ara tighter. "Why?" "She's just a baby." Mason stepped back, shaken. "No, she's not just a baby. She's the signal." The wind screamed again outside, but this time, the real storm was inside, and it had only just begun. The fire crackled in the corner, weak and flickering. It gave off little heat, but Mason wasn't looking for comfort anymore. He sat on the floor, staring at the child. Ara was sleeping peacefully in Sarah's arms, her breath soft and even, unaware that the world had changed again because of her. Sarah didn't blink. She didn't speak. Her body was frozen in place, holding the child like a shield, or maybe like a secret too powerful to let go. Mason finally broke the silence. "She's the reason they're here." Sarah's eyes snapped to him. "That's impossible. I heard that word once," he said. "When the harvesters took my unit. One of them said something, just one word before killing my commander. Echo, we didn't know what it meant. We thought it was some code, and now you think it's her?" "She was born under their ships," Mason said slowly, "during the first harvest. In fire and smoke. You said it yourself, everything was falling apart, but she lived." Sarah whispered, "She was early. I thought she wouldn't make it. But she did," Mason said. "And she's not just alive. She's special, can't you feel it? She doesn't cry, not when she's supposed to. She doesn't freeze, even out there. That's not normal." Sarah held Ara closer, but her voice was uncertain. "She's just a child." "No," Mason said. "She's the one they're afraid of." For a long time nothing moved. The storm outside had stopped, as if the world was waiting to see what they would do next. Mason got to his feet. "We can't stay here. They'll come back. And next time, they won't just knock." Sarah looked around the shelter. It had become a cage, a safe one, but only for now. "Where will we go?" she asked. "There's a place north of here," Mason said, "an old listening post. Buried under the mountains. If there are answers, they'll be there. Sarah hesitated. And if there's nothing? Then we run again, he said, but at least we'll know we tried. Sarah looked down at her daughter, then slowly nodded. They packed quickly. Rations, batteries, the data core, and the old maps Mason had been studying for months. The rifle stayed close. The cold was cruel, but it wasn't the worst thing out there anymore. Before leaving, Mason opened a rusted box under the floor. Inside was a strange curved piece of black metal. Sarah frowned. What's that? Mason looked at her, then at Era. I took it off a harvester unit, years ago. Never figured out what it does. But when I brought it close to the baby last night, it started humming. He placed it in a small bag and slung it over his shoulder. As they stepped into the snow, the world felt different. Still broken, still dangerous, but now, every shadow felt like it was watching them. Every gust of wind carried a whisper they couldn't hear. Sarah kept her daughter wrapped tight. Mason led the way, boots crunching through the frozen ground. They walked for hours. Then something moved in the trees. Mason raised a hand, signaling Sarah to stop. His eyes scanned the woods, branches shaking, snow falling from the higher limbs. But no sound. He lifted his rifle slowly, and then a shape stepped out of the trees. Not metal, not machine, a man, but not like Mason. His clothes were cleaner, his face was smooth, unmarked by war. And behind him stood two others, silent, still, too still. Travelers. The man said, smiling, "We've been waiting for you." Mason lowered his rifle slightly. "Who are you?" The man stepped closer, his smile never changing. "Friends," he said. "We've been watching over Echo for a very long time." Sarah took a step back. "What do you mean watching over?" "We knew she was born," the man said. "We just didn't expect her to survive this long." Mason raised the rifle again. "Start explaining, now." The smile faded. "She's not the end," the man said. "She's the beginning." And then the two silent figures behind him moved, and their eyes glowed bright blue. Not human. Not friends. Not anymore. Mason fired first. The shot echoed through the forest, loud and sharp, tearing across the silence like lightning. One of the glowing-eyed figures dropped, metal sparking where its chest should have been. The other didn't flinch. It moved fast, too fast, and was on him in seconds. He dodged, barely rolling through the snow. The thing's metal arms slammed into a tree, snapping it in half like a twig. Mason hit the ground hard, breath knocked out of him. He scrambled for the rifle. Sarah didn't scream. She couldn't afford to. She turned, clutching Era tight, and ran. The fake man shouted after her. His voice was still calm, still smiling. "You can't run from her destiny." She didn't look back. Branches whipped her face. Her legs burned. The child was heavy now, heavier than she should be. But something inside Sarah refused to stop. Behind her, the fight continued. Gunfire. Sparks. A crash. Then Mason's voice. Distant, rough. "Sarah, keep going," she did. And then quiet. No footsteps behind her, no voices. Just snow. She didn't trust it. She found a small hollow beneath the roots of an old tree and slid inside. The baby didn't cry, just stared up at her with wide, silent eyes. Sarah pressed her forehead to Era's. "What are you?" she whispered. "Why do they want you?" The child didn't answer. But her eyes, they were glowing faintly now. Not blue like the machines. Gold, warm, alive. It made Sarah's heart skip that far away. Something in the air cracked like thunder. The ground trembled. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. The cold began to bite again. Then snow crunched just outside the hollow. A shadow moved past. Slow, careful. She held her breath. But the shadow didn't belong to a machine. Mason dropped to one knee beside the hollow, covered in cuts and ash. His coat was torn. He looked like death, but he was breathing. "They're not fully machines," he said. "Not anymore. They used to be like us." Sarah crawled out, still holding the baby. "You saw it?" He nodded. "Under the skin flesh. Nerves, but twisted, changed." She said nothing. "They were people once," Mason said. "Turned into this. Controlled." "By who?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," he said. "But they knew her name before I said it. That means someone told them. Someone who's been watching her even longer than we thought." He stood, helping her to her feet. "We need to move fast," he said. "There's a train line just ahead. Abandoned, but maybe still running off backup power. If we can reach it'll get us close to the mountain station." Sarah nodded, too numb to argue. They reached the rails just as the sun dipped low. Rusted tracks curved into a long tunnel carved into the cliffs. No lights, no sounds. Just a gaping mouth waiting to swallow them whole. As they stepped onto the tracks, Era stirred. She pointed at the tunnel. "Light," she whispered. Mason and Sarah froze. The child had spoken. A soft hum began in the air, and deep inside the tunnel, a warm glow answered. Something had woken, and it was waiting for her. ChatGPT said. The tunnel was alive. Not with sound, not with movement, but with something deeper, an energy that hummed just beneath the metal rails and cold stone. As Mason stepped forward, the light ahead grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Sarah tightened her grip on Era, her feet slowing with every step. "She said light," Mason whispered. "She saw it before we did." Sarah nodded, too stunned to speak. Era wasn't pointing anymore. She was calm now, resting her head against her mother's chest, eyes half closed like she was listening to something no one else could hear. They reached the tunnel entrance. The glow was coming from deep within, a golden pulse that lit the old walls one beat at a time. Mason ran a hand along the stone. "Warm. This isn't just power," he said. "It's something else." They walked inside. Every few steps, Mason would glance behind. Nothing followed. Yet the deeper they went, the more the tunnel began to change. It was no longer rough and broken. It was smooth, like it had been repaired from the inside. Strange symbols ran along the walls, pulsing with the same golden glow as Era's eyes. Sarah stopped. "These symbols," she said. "I've seen them before." "Where?" She pointed at Era, on her skin. "When she was born, they faded after a few hours. I thought it was just a birthmark." Mason stepped closer to the markings. They weren't written by human hands. They curved like sound, like waves etched not for reading, but for feeling. "They're calling to her," he said. Far ahead, a shape appeared. It wasn't walking. It was floating. A tall, thin figure cloaked in white, its face hidden behind a smooth mask. Light flowed from its body like smoke, curling into the tunnel and wrapping around the rails. It didn't speak, but the moment it appeared, Era lifted her head. She stared at the figure, and the figure bowed to her. Mason raised his rifle. "Don't move." The figure didn't flinch. Then a voice echoed not from its mouth, but from everywhere at once, soft, musical. "She is Echo, born of silence, carrier of memory, returner of light." Sarah stepped back. "What are you?" "A watcher," the voice replied. "We were sent before the machines. We are not enemies." "Prove it," Mason said. The figure turned its head toward him, and the golden light around them dimmed. "In the war before your sky fell," it said, "there was a signal lost, a living code, a message that could not be destroyed. It found refuge in the unborn." Mason's grip tightened. "You're saying she's a signal?" "She is more than that," the watcher said. "She is a memory the machines fear, a code that cannot be rewritten, a final answer they could not erase." Sarah stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "She's just a child." The watcher finally moved closer. Not threatening, almost gentle. Its voice softened. She is a child. But she is also the last threat of something they tried to kill. What do they want from her? Mason asked. To end her, the Watcher said. And in doing so, end what they could not control. But you brought her here. That means there is still time. Time for what? To wake the others. Mason frowned. What others? The Watcher stepped aside, revealing a hidden door in the tunnel wall. It slid open without sound. Behind it lay rows of cryopods, old, dusty, but still glowing faintly, and in each one, a person, not dead, sleeping. Sarah's breath caught. I know that face. That's my brother. He disappeared during the first attack. These are the Echo Bearers, the Watcher said. Humans who were marked by the code but did not survive. Their bodies slept, waiting. But now with her, we can wake them. Era cooed softly, reaching out one small hand. And the pods began to glow brighter. The pods began to hum. One by one, lights flickered to life across the hidden chamber. Golden veins pulsed along the floor and ceiling, running like rivers of memory through the walls. The people inside the cryopods, once pale, still forgotten now, stirred. Fingers switched. Eyes fluttered open. Breath returned like a long-lost song. Sarah stumbled backward, her mouth open in shock. There, waking, Mason didn't speak. He just stared, weapon lowered, as the impossible unfolded in front of him. These weren't just survivors. These were the lost, those taken by the harvesters in the first wave. People thought to be dead, wiped away by fire and ash. But they had been kept alive, preserved, protected. The Watcher stepped forward, cloak billowing without wind. They were carriers of fragments, pieces of the same living code, now whole in the child. Alone. They were silent, but with her near, they remember. Era's eyes glowed again, golden and calm. She wasn't afraid. She watched the people awaken with the strange serenity of someone who already knew this was meant to happen. One of the sleepers, a woman with silver hair, gasped and sat up. Her eyes locked on Sarah. Sarah? The woman whispered. Sarah. Dropped to her knees. Mother? Tears ran down her face, falling like snow. Mason looked away, his throat tight, but there was no time for reunions. A low boom sounded from somewhere deep above. The tunnel shook, dust raining from the ceiling. They found us, Mason said. The Watcher turned, voice steady. The awakening has drawn their attention. Echo's presence is no longer hidden. They are coming in force. How much time do we have? Mason asked. Not enough. Another boom, closer this time. Mason looked at the long hallway filled with newly awakened survivors. Can they fight? They remember how, the Watcher said. But they will need her. She is the key. Sarah stepped forward. She's just a baby, she can't lead them. She doesn't need to lead, the Watcher said. She needs only to shine. More of the sleepers were rising now, their eyes glowing faint gold like Era's. Whatever she was, whatever power flowed in her blood, it was spreading. Not a weapon. Not violence, something older. A signal. A call. Hope. The Watcher placed one long hand on Mason's shoulder. Go. Buy them time. Defend the gate. Mason nodded, checked his rifle, and ran down the tunnel without another word. Sarah stood, trembling. What do I do? Stay, the Watcher said. Let her awaken them all. They will rise, they will remember, and they will fight. Far above, the world was already shaking. Massive machines broke through snow and stone, their long arms glowing with fire. The sky split with the roar of engines. Mason reached the outer gate and stared into the cold light of the coming army. It was bigger than before, smarter, faster. The harvesters weren't just hunting. They were afraid now, afraid of a baby, afraid of what she might become. He raised his rifle, took a deep breath, and smiled bitterly. Let's make you earn it. The first machine stepped forward. And then behind him, Deep in the tunnel, a sound rose. A single cry, not of fear, not of pain. Era's voice, small and high and clear, echoed through the tunnel. It was not a scream. It was a song, and the walls shook with it. The harvesters hesitated. The gold light surged outward. Mason looked over his shoulder as the mountain lit up behind him like a sun. And in that moment, he knew they didn't save her. She had saved them all.